After the humiliating defeat to Aberdeen, Rangers are on the brink of drastic changes. And when we talk about changes, we mean at the very top. Is manager Philippe Clement's sacking inevitable? And what about the turmoil at the top of the Rangers hierarchy? With furious fans and leadership in crisis, something's got to give, but is it too late to save the season? We've got Sutton and Boyd dropping exclusive bombshells, Cyril Desires, James Tavernier. It's absolute madness unfolding. Stick around to catch all the explosive details in this situation that's set to shake Rangers to its core. To get daily Rangers news at your fingertips, just hit the notification bell. Let's get into the news. We are the people. Oh, it's turning into a circus at Rangers, isn't it? Clement's comments after that Aberdeen fiasco left folk scratching their heads, and rightly so. You lose 2-1, put on a dreadful show in the first half, barely manage a shot on target, and yet he reckons it was one of the season's best performances. Honestly, you've got to wonder if Big Phil's been watching the same match as the rest of us. Now, Chris Boyd, who knows a thing or two about playing for Rangers, came right out with it, didn't he? Called it nothing but excuses, plain and simple, and he's not wrong either. We've splashed out a small fortune this season, yet somehow look weaker across the board. Doesn't matter which position you look at, every single one feels like a downgrade, and if Chris wasn't enough, in comes Celtic's very own Chris Sutton chucking in his 2 pence. He even dared to say it's delusional, which, mind you, is strong coming from a lad like Sutton. Embarrassing, sure, but delusional? That one'll sting for Clement. Former Aberdeen goalie Joe Lewis chimed in as well, saying this was the most worrying sight he'd seen from Rangers in ages, and honestly, as much as it pains me to admit, he's got a point. The players looked flat, and when your manager's downplaying the fans' worries after a performance like that, it feels like adding insult to injury. Folk don't want a manager who's talking to them like they're daft. They want someone who owns up and rolls up their sleeves to fix things. So, here's a question to you lot that's bound to stir things up. Is Clement just out of touch with the fans, or is he genuinely out of his depth at Rangers? Cyril Desires, what a day to forget, eh? You might as well have put a traffic cone up front for all the impact he made. Honestly, it's starting to feel like he's costing Clement more than just points. He could well be costing him his job at Rangers. That defeat to Aberdeen has really stirred the pot. 9 points adrift in the title race already, and folk are calling for Clement's head. But let's face it, Desires isn't helping his cause one bit. Clement gave him the nod to lead the line after sitting out the St. Mirren match, thinking maybe he'd freshen things up. Instead, Desires was barely a ghost on the pitch. 20 touches in 83 minutes? Come on, you'd get more involvement from the bloke selling pies in the stands. The stats are brutal. 6 passes all match, 0 success in his duels, and a big chance missed. Even the commentary team couldn't hold back, with James McFadden pointing out his shocking positioning. And then there's the offside mess. 3 times he got caught out, including during the build-up to McCausland's disallowed goal. You can't be pulling stunts like that when the team's struggling for points. No wonder folk are saying we should cut our losses and ship him off in January. Mark Guidi's been saying it for a while, and he's starting to look bang on the money. So here's something to get your blood boiling. Should Rangers bin Desires in January, or is the real issue Clement putting his trust in a striker who looks miles off the pace? James Tavernier, the one who's supposed to be steering the ship, but let's be honest, he's managed to steer us straight into an iceberg here. Rangers fans are losing patience, and with every mistake like this, it's no wonder they're looking at Clement and thinking, can he even control his own captain? Before the match, Clement was banging on about intensity and aggression, right? He wanted the lads to go in with fire, but instead, we saw a Rangers side in the first half that looked about as aggressive as a Sunday stroll through Kelvin Grove Park. Aberdeen should have had us buried by half-time, and yet the man Clement is relying on to lead on the pitch, Tavernier, is making errors that scream of complacency. Now let's talk about the horror show. Tavernier's stats may look half decent on SofaScore, but anyone watching that game knows those numbers don't tell the full story. All it takes is one costly moment, and he gifted Aberdeen the win. That final goal, it's painful to even relive it. He had all the time to boot it clear, put it out for a throw, anything sensible, but no, he tries to control it in the penalty area, hands it to Devlin, and the rest is history. Rangers were actually the better team in the second half, for all that's worth. If Tav had just cleared his lines, who knows, maybe we'd have seen a late winner. Instead, that lapse might just cost Clement his job, and the fans are right to ask, how long can we have a captain who's supposed to lead but seems to crumble when it matters? So here's a spicy one for you lot. Has Tavernier's time as captain run its course, or are these mistakes just part of a bigger problem under Clement? The knives are well and truly out for Philippe Clement after that grim showing against Aberdeen. The talk now is that his sacking isn't just likely, it's inevitable. And who can argue Rangers are 9 points adrift of both Celtic and Aberdeen? And for all Clement's talk of intensity and aggression, it's been anything but. Fans on social media, like Four Lads Had a Dream, have called him out for a lack of heart, zero desire, and frankly, boring, clueless football. You could see it in every pass and missed tackle. There's no spark, no drive, and certainly no leadership on the pitch. Clement came in with high hopes after Beale's mess last season, and early on, he had us believing he'd bring something fresh, but fast forward to now, and it's like he's run out of steam before the season's even halfway through. Let's be honest, the 2-1 win over St Mirren bought him a bit of time, but this Aberdeen defeat has shattered any goodwill left. Even Marvin Bartley on BBC Scotland said the biggest concern isn't just the loss, it's how predictably poor Rangers have looked. Right now, every team in the league is licking their lips, fancying a shot at us. Then there's the eerie parallel to Van Bronckhorst, sacked for the exact same point gap not so long ago. Clement's one advantage, the utter shambles in the boardroom where the interim chairman is juggling roles and responsibilities, trying to patch up a ship that's leaking at every seam. If the fans have their way, though, Clement won't make it past the weekend no matter the cost. So here's the million-pound question for you lot. Has Clement's time run out? Or is Rangers' real problem a board that's so out of touch they've forgotten how to back a manager properly? Well, if it wasn't already messy, Jim White's comments have thrown a petrol can on the fire. He's not wrong, though. Rangers are sitting in a complete state of disarray right now, 9 points behind Celtic and Aberdeen. And yet, for all the calls to sack Clement, who's even left to make that call? The boardroom's an empty shell, with no chairman, no CEO, no proper leadership to steer this ship. It's as if Rangers have been left in limbo, and it's looking bleaker by the day. White's right about the panic stations. Clement might just be sleepwalking to the sack, but there's no one to do the actual sacking. No wonder the fans' confidence is at rock bottom. Even if the club wanted to make a change, there's no structure left to pull it off. And let's not forget the financial disaster looming over it all. Sacking Clement would be costly, with the last 2 managers still being paid off as part of a £17.2 million in losses. So Clement's in this bizarre position of being both the club's scapegoat and its buffer. The man's stuck in a corner, but then again, he's the one in charge of the players on the pitch. And if there's no improvement soon, the calls for his head aren't going to go away, board or no board. It's an utter shambles, and Rangers fans are left watching this implosion with mounting frustration. So here's one for you all. Are the board's issues giving Clement a free pass? Or should the fans demand his sacking, even if it leaves Rangers with nobody at the helm? Comment below what you think about the news. Don't forget to leave a like on the video to help me out. I post videos every day talking about our Rangers, so if you're not subscribed, you're missing out on the latest news. See you soon.